Hi everyone, Raphael Harry here, and you're listening to White Label American, a podcast where we hear stories from an immigrant or two, sometimes more. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Welcome to another episode of White Label American. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm happy to have today's guest with us. And before I introduce him, I just want to send a shout out to all our listeners and everyone on the front lines, either fighting for our rights, either those of you in the hospitals, those of you out there making sure people are getting the right information about containing about containing COVID-19. We appreciate each and every one of you. And for those of you fighting for the Black Lives Matter, we appreciate you because you're doing the right thing. And for those of you all over the world fighting for various struggles, we appreciate each and every one of you because you're doing the right thing and you're our heroes. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So without much further ado, I introduce Josuel Musambaghani. That's it, right? I almost missed it, almost, but I think I got it. So Josuel is a software engineer at Microsoft, working in the cybersecurity division. Josuel has worked in Silicon Valley with startups such as Code 2040, or is it called Code 2040, and Slack. Josuel's team at Microsoft won the 2019 and 2020 CSO 50 awards, a prize for cybersecurity projects and initiatives that demonstrate outstanding business value. Josuel also serves on the advisory board for the Microsoft Aspire Experience and is the co-chair of Employee Network Africans at Microsoft. He's also a Phi Beta Kappa. I always forget about that word until it's time to say it out loud. Phi Beta Kappa graduate of Morehouse College with degrees as a valedictorian in both mathematics and computer science. So that's just the surface. There's still a lot more to Josuel that I haven't touched on, but we'll get into that as the episode goes on, and then you get to realize why I held back on those two because I want you all to find out. Josuel also does a lot of volunteering work, and he is also a co-founder of Africa Travel. But we'll dive deeper into the volunteering work, which is something that is very big. He is very big about, and we'll talk about Africa Travel also. So welcome on the podcast, and thank you for joining us today. How you doing?
So much. Thank you so much, and thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
All righty. So our pleasure having you, man. So where were you born, and can you give us a brief insight into your childhood?
Sure. Yes, I was born in Goma. It's a city in the province of North Kivu. It's eastern Congo. Goma is a volcanic city. We actually had an eruption in 2002. I was young enough then, and the volcanic aspect of it brings it also a very touristic aspect also to it. So the volcano being an attraction, there is a park, the oldest African park in the park of Virunga, National Park of Virunga. And so I grew up in that environment where the city gets to be visited by so many people, given its touristic appeal, and also just in the events around the city as well, because even though Goma is beautiful and is a very touristic hotspot for people in Congo and outside of Congo, it has also gone through tons of events as far as wars are concerned in the past 20 years. So my childhood was around all of that. It
Yeah.
was around beauty and chaos at the same time.
Mm.
And I mean, I can't take anything away from it, because I think part of that experience is made who I am today.
Yeah. I love that description of being around beauty and chaos. And I also love that you mentioned the volcanic eruption. Funny thing, but going back to my childhood, for some reason, I don't even know how it started or how that got into my memory or got implanted in me. Well, I just never thought that Africa had mountains that could have a volcanic eruption. So
Right.
we just, I don't know, just in my environment, because I lived in a couple of cities in Nigeria.
Right.
And it just felt like for something like that, when it comes to volcanoes, you had to go outside the continent to go
Yeah.
experience that. And then I think by the time I got to the age of 15, 16, Mount Kilimanjaro was the only place that
Yeah.
seemed to be where you could picture a volcano happening. And then for some reason, I don't recall how or when, it got mentioned once on the news that there was talk about a possible volcanic eruption happening in, I think it was in the northeast of Nigeria, where you have some mountainous um, regions. And we're like, what kind of volcano is that? Man, you guys making this up, man.
Right.
Volcanoes in Nigeria. Man, get out of here. Ain't nobody taking that
Right.
seriously. Like, but we were in the south, and we're like, nah, that can't happen. That can't
Right.
even happen in Africa. Why would that happen? And
Right.
but stuff like that just showed how the information we got back then just seemed like this stuff is we don't why would they have something like this? And I believe that that's how we got to miss out on the touristic learning, because we'll just look at education as tourism as like only vacations or like partying,
Yeah.
without realizing that there's an educational aspect to it. And if the educational system had the education had a system in place where children were taken to go see sites within their own country, and then could go on field trips to fellow African countries nearby, then you start realizing, oh wait, we have these places and this, different types of lands and topographies around and
Yeah.
geographical surfaces
Yeah.
on the continent. And it's not just limited to outside the continent, and then the certain ways we grow up, that misinformation that we all have, it wouldn't exist, wouldn't, and all these things tie into the inferiority complex that a whole lot of us have from
Yeah.
different parts of the continent, where it's like we only think about going outside the continent for everything, because a lot of stuff we should be doing it, we can be doing it within the continent and having a huge economy right there, but all these things is like, like, wow, we had volcanic eruptions, and we have all these things there, and many people just don't know. You just don't know, and it's like, how far away is it from you? It's right there,
Right.
but
Right.
someone has to come from outside the continent and come show you, like, wow, and then they'll tell you that person discovered it.
Yeah. No. Yeah. To your point, I think that's so well said. The aspect about education is pertinent, because I think as we go through classes in high school and primary school, we learn about all this, Alps, or we learn about all this,
Yeah.
mountains in Asia and Europe, and
Mm-hmm.
the mountains in America, right?
Yeah.
Like, but and we memorize them, right? Like
That's
our
true.
teachers expect us to actually get the answer right, and be punished otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And if you compare the amount of content that we learn about other continents versus the ones we learn about our own countries, ours is weaker, is
Yeah.
lower.
We
And
don't know anything. We
right, it
never.
establishes that kind of like superiority in our mind complex, as you mentioned, right? Like,
Yeah.
if I heard the a French mountain 10 times in my class, and I heard only the Nyiragongo, which is the volcano north of Goma, only once or 0 times, then every time someone will mention the two mountains side by side, my idea of what's valuable
Yeah,
will go to the French mountain
that's
versus the
true.
Congo.
And
So
as kids,
education is a big piece. Yeah.
the spirit of adventure starts to, you start to create that spirit of adventure, and you want to go. I want to
Exactly.
be that guy who can go travel. Because that's how your superheroes are created in your
Mm,
mind. It's about adventure. I want to go visit this place. I want to go hiking. We may not have the words for hiking
yes.
back then, but it's like I want to go from this place to that place. And when you start looking back, you don't have any place in Africa in your
Right.
mind. The only place you might have in Africa is just the pyramids, and the only pyramids the pyramids in Egypt,
Right.
which are the most popular ones that we've seen.
Yeah.
But I think even right now, I think you may have even triggered my memories. I think Virunga National Park, the
Yeah.
first time I probably heard about it was in a movie. Because if I'm not mistaken, it's been in a movie.
Yeah. There was Virunga on Netflix. Yes.
And that's
Yeah.
but I think even way much older movie a much older movie
Oh.
had it. If
Yeah.
I'm trying to recall about a gorilla or something, but I'm pretty
Mm,
sure that that was the first time I heard
mm,
about Virunga. But all these things is like, so when you start looking like, okay, I want to do something like go on a trip, like I want to travel from place to place, the kid is not thinking about I want to go through. I want to go from Nigeria through to Congo and then come back. Nah, the kid is not like thinking, but the kid is
right.
thinking about I want to go through the Andes mountains. I want to go
Yeah.
visit a bunch of European countries. Or I want to go through Asia. I want to go through the Americas, and that's how it unfortunately starts to develop. I'm not saying it's wrong to do that because you should want to go explore other places. It's a good thing to explore, but the fact that we don't even have that imagery in our mind to
Yeah.
explore our backyard.
Right.
Every other person is cool with exploring their backyard
Hmm.
because they say charity begins at home, and
Right.
but we are like the only ones who just don't have that imagery in our head. Like, oh, we should be able to explore because
Right.
we're not even encouraged to. So, yeah, hopefully that's the good thing with the beauty about this age, though, that the more we have information like this coming out, and
Mhm.
especially the younger ones can start seeing and knowing that they don't have to repeat what we've been doing. They can
Right.
do better. But anyway, let's move on to next question. So,
Mhm.
what was your favorite childhood memory?
So yeah, my favorite childhood memory. It's very tough to pick one, but one that I will pick will be so my school and my home was about half less than a kilometer from Lake Kivu. So Goma is
Oh,
boards a lake.
yeah.
So I could typically remember there is a place, it's a hotel, small hotel slash park, and so we will typically go there with family or my brothers or friends to either just play by the lake, or just rest there. Or like one of my favorite things or sounds that I tell people is the sound of water clashing on the rocks on the shore. So Goma is
Yeah.
a volcanic
Mm-hmm.
city, so it's all rocks everywhere. I think I developed that from those multiple trips to the lake,
Mm.
because it's just relaxing. You sit there, it's calm. There are like very dramatic sunsets at times, and you all you can hear is the sound of water hitting the rocks. And it's peaceful, right? Like,
Yeah.
and to the same idea I mentioned earlier around the beauty and the chaos all in one, right? Like, it's yesterday you heard about rebels almost wanting to come take the city, and the following day you are by the lake, kind of like sitting and just watching the sunset and having the waves hit the rocks. Is a great metaphor, I think, about growing up in a place that has so much potential, and yet maybe for the same potential that it has, it's threatened by powers and people who want to come, or take it over, or just like make it unstable.
Mm.
But then I think the challenge is, how do you keep getting that beauty in the chaos, and elevate the beauty to an extent that it kind of extinguishes or like wins over any negative that might come over to take the city. So I think I believe in that idea that the more of us, if we can, lean towards good and find the beauty in things, maybe we can actually appeal to other people to see the beauty and be urged to protect it, so that everybody else who is trying to come and harm us
Yeah.
can be like, no, 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 that's a beautiful thing, don't touch it, right? Like, I know so many people who talk about Goma as, or Congo, they're like, hey, do people actually even live there? Or like, I'm
Mm.
like, that place Goma is like 70 Fahrenheit degrees all year round. I'm like, you go there, it's the best weather you'll ever live in ever, right? So there are resilient people, there are like beautiful people who will have a smile on their face no matter what, right? And that's the beauty that the headlines don't put when they say, hey, two people were killed
Yeah.
in north of Goma. So yeah, I mean, your question, I've diverged from the question, but like,
No.
the point being, right, like, just me being at the lake, I think it's important. The reason I picked that example among many was because like, I kind of run with it today as that beautiful metaphor of, hey, I did find beauty, even though, like, amongst or within that beauty, there were all these other headlines that the world's found most important to cling on,
Yeah.
than to cling on the idea that, no, Josuel is actually enjoying himself by the beach regularly in Goma. Maybe we should think about how to protect him, because whenever people talk about war, they talk about numbers and politics. Oh,
Mm.
it's this president who's going to go for this president, it's this group, it's this company, it's trying to get this minerals.
Yeah.
But like, ultimately at the bottom, it's people, right? And
Mm.
if you can see the people at the bottom and the beauty in those people, maybe the appeal will be bigger to be like, hey, yeah, we need to protect those people. Let's not worry about the math of gold or minerals or companies or government. But if we worry about people, then and see the value in those people and recognize their worth, then everything else will kind of like be second citizen to, or second nature to the first priority, which is human dignity, in my opinion. So yeah.
That was beautiful, man. That was beautiful. You know, there's one thing about the water always splashing over the rocks.
Mm.
I believe nature always answers a lot of our questions, but we just don't listen.
Mm.
And it doesn't matter where you are, what continent, what country, it's always, there's this calming effect that it has. Anytime, because I've done something like that too in different cities in Nigeria. They used to call me like, there was a different name they had for me that I can't really recall, but I used to just enjoy going to stand by the water. And there was once they said I got lost when we visited a village, and they couldn't find me. They said I disappeared. My mom told me this story some years later, and said I disappeared, and there was panic. And my mom was like quite senior in the family, so of course it was like she would bring down rain and hellfire if they don't find me. Like, it was like, did somebody kidnap her son or something? But somebody came and said, there's one kid who's standing by the river, and he's just saying, look at the big water, sea water, big water, big water. That's what he keeps saying. And whose kid is that? He's obviously not from the village, but he's just fascinated by the water. And they came there, and of course it was me, running my mouth, but I was just happy to see the water. And everywhere I go, I always enjoy coming by a body of water and just relaxing every now and then. It's peaceful.
Right.
I find some peace there. It's calm, and even just watching the water splash on the rocks. It doesn't have to be a big wave or anything, but it's just some calming effect that it has. And I can just sit down there. If I have a book, I can read, or if nothing, just sit down, just watch the waves. And it's like, I don't even know how to put it in words, but
Yeah.
I've done that for like an hour, even more than an hour. Just sit
Mhm.
down there, do nothing. And sometimes that's all
Sure.
you need. Just sit down there and do nothing. And if you can
Exactly.
appreciate that, there's no way you want to destroy that place.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you want to destroy that environment. But if you
Exactly.
cannot appreciate something like that, then you will only be thinking about, I want to just get everything, so pull everything out of this ground and, move on to the next place. Because there's nobody who I've seen who can appreciate just the calmness of the water on the
Right.
rocks,
Mm-hmm.
who now gets up from that and says, I don't see value in protecting human life.
Right.
There's something about that, and that's why I say nature always has a way of answering questions, but we just have
Right.
to listen, and that listening is just watching that. And even when I was in Bahrain, there was times where I would just go to the public beach and just watch the water like that, waves, and there weren't big waves there, and you see the same thing. And in New York, there are places you can go to by the Brooklyn Bridge and see the same
Right.
thing too. So yeah, everywhere has something like that, and I believe nature is always telling us, speaking to us. But the people say we don't have time. We have to hustle. Also, I said, really,
Mm-hmm.
do we? But you just got to listen. That's the thing. So
For sure.
it's beautiful that you brought that up because yeah, it's
Right.
relatable anywhere and everywhere. So thank you for
Right.
that.
No
So
problem.
um, going from your childhood, well, still sticking with your childhood,
Mm.
was there how did you now well, let's say, how let me rephrase this. You did you have any role models or inspirations who subconsciously laid sowed seeds in you that looking back now you're like, oh, this person, or this was the person I looked up to that made me choose the path that I'm in today, or maybe this was, without even realizing it, this was an action that I took that
Yeah.
shows that this was the path I was going to end up in.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I want to really look far in on this one. My both my parents were very instrumental in just, making me who I am today. I'll start with my dad, who by the time I think I was 5, he brought this desktop computers in our home, and they were just there, right? Like, so for us to use and play. There were no internet, obviously, and I mean electricity wasn't permanent,
Yeah.
so we took them, me and my brothers and sisters, will see them as just toys that will be a way of entertainment when electricity shows up. There were not a whole lot to do in those computers. We'll just get in there and do pinball, these very old games, or play with just Microsoft Office, types of apps, right? Like Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel,
Yeah.
right? All of those are, because we didn't have lots of applications on the computer. It was either pinball, you're doing all the games, solitaire and all that. And when you're tired of that, I actually remember the one that we'll spend the most time in would be Paint, MS Paint, Microsoft Paint. So I'll just go
Oh.
there and start
Yeah.
drawing stuff
Yeah.
with the app. But so yeah, that I would say is one aspect of the things that one aspect that demystified tech to me,
Mm.
because before we know it, me and my siblings, since we were playing around with this whole Microsoft suite, by the time we had 10, 12, 13, we were better or faster at the computer than most people.
Yeah.
So we started, having people who are in college coming to us and say, hey, I have this paper, but I'm slow, I need to finish it in 2 days. Can you help me type it? I'm like, yeah, I can type that in like 60 minutes. All right. So I sit down and start typing, right? And then, as time goes, my parents start asking, they're like, do you actually know you can, there is a job that's called what you are doing. It's called data entry clerk, right? So you can enter data and people can actually pay you for it. And we're like, what? Like money? Like, just 100 francs for it? Yeah. And they're like, yes. So we started doing that. Me and my siblings were like, yeah, anytime anybody from college comes and wants their paper written, we'll be like, hey, it's 200 francs, Congolese franc per paper. That was in our mind, that was too big. It was
Yeah.
too much. It's like $1. And so they will come with like hundreds of pages because to them it was a huge deal. Like there were these kids who will just type anything you saw at them, and you pay them like near nothing, and but for them they'll be happy, right? So that demystified this idea like of tech. We wrote papers, we made money, we were happy, and then there is something about some people who are way older than you being satisfied
Mm-hmm.
with the service that you're doing as a 13-year-old or 14. You are like, wow, so I can do something that's valuable on college level or even
Yeah.
beyond college level. So there is a confidence that comes with that. So I think in doing that, my dad didn't do much than just bring those computers and drop them there. They helped me demystify a whole lot about tech. And then the other thing that my dad did, he will actually he was a teacher at a university in town, a local university in town. So he will bring me to his classes and make me sit on the back if I don't have school.
Yeah.
So I'll just go sit on the back, a 7-year-old kid or 8-year-old kid sitting on the back with 20, 30-year-olds in university. And I remember my nickname was assistant professor by all the
That sounds like
other
something. That sounds like
right,
Nigeria.
right. So they
Assistant
kept calling
professor.
me assistant professor,
Uh,
and I mean, there is something about it, I imagine, that just builds this kind of aspiration or character or like like need for learning. So that's one what I will say on my dad's side, right? Like the computers that kind of demystify tech for me, and me sitting in these classes that modeled education and the need for learning. And on my mom's side, I think I'll model courage and resilience, right? Like I had not met anybody more courageous and more resilient than her, right? Like I mentioned the volcano we had in 2002. My dad was not home quite yet, and she was monumental in managing what will have been quite chaotic if she didn't pick the right decision. And I see that on a day to day, right? Like
mm-hmm.
you looking back now, there are times where there were no viable solution for anyone to take in a specific moment, but she never showed that to us.
Yeah.
Right, like now looking back, I'm like, wow, so you didn't even have money to pay for that? How did you do that? Right, like, so she will just go out in the world and figure things out and come back with a smile and be like, hey, go to school, hey, go do this, hey. Right, and so I think just that image now that I bear of her doing the impossible to let myself and my siblings grow up has just carried me into tech today, or everything that I do today, with the idea that you want to take down a baobab, the
Yeah.
big tree, you got to stick to it. Right, so and I think that she exemplifies that through her courage and resilience, right? Like you see a problem, just embrace it, stick to it, like stick as hard as you can, and finally the baobab will be down. And I think she exemplifies that, and it has shown time and again in the way I've gone through things in the US and at work, right? Like and turn back and be like, wait, did I actually pass that that step, right? So yeah, I will say my dad, my parents, both my parents have been monumental in shaping much of who I am today.
That's great. That's great to hear. Wow, that's beautiful. So, um, I was thinking of going a different route, but I think I might just, that might mean leaving Congo. So I want to stay in Congo for a little bit
All right.
because Congo has such a great culture, the diverse cultural background, and from fashion, music, food,
Right.
and I always ask my guests, especially about food and music. So let's dive into food.
Okay.
So what's your favorite? Now that you're over here, Do you still are you still big in the Congolese cuisine? And so it's going to be a two-part question. What
Right.
was your favorite Congolese cuisine? And
Mm.
now that you're over here, do you still have access to it?
Right, good question. The access is very hard. I'll answer the latter one first.
Okay.
It's definitely hard, and the reason why it's hard, I think, probably if I explain my favorite food, it will make sense now, right? Like I love like the meal I want to have right now, and it slightly changes depending on times. But now, just give me plantains, right? Like,
Mm.
and then give me these small fish. That are from actually the Kivu Lake in by Goma that are called sambaza. They are very tiny fish. They are almost kind of the size of the fish you find in sardines, right? Sardine
Yeah.
boxes.
Oh, so they're
So
not big then.
yeah, right. Like you put plantains, you put sambaza, right? And then you put sombe. Sombe is like just cassava leaves. It's like some greens that are made of some cassava leaves, right?
Okay.
And then you add fufu, of course, right? Like on the side, right? Like you put that kind of four course or four types of ingredients meal together. That's I'm kind of like in heaven at that time. But then like going back to the question around access, right? Like it's hard to find sambaza, obviously, because it's only in, I think, two lakes in Africa, like the exact same types of fish. It's in
Oh.
Kivu Lake and I think Tanganyika Lake. So yeah, getting it out here is hard. Every time I go home, I make sure I box it
Okay.
and then come with it. But plantains, of course, I can find. Fufu, I can. But just not the best quality, but I can. So yeah, I every time I'm home, the treat is really the fresh food, because the other aspect of it is the
Yeah.
freshness of it, right?
Freshness.
So
Yeah.
those fish, right, like as fresh as the same day, or like
Mm-hmm.
the fufu, or the plantains, all of it, it's just like a day or two fresh, right? And you just eat it, then your body responds to the freshness. You feel that something is fresh. So yeah.
So when you say fufu, it's you guys fufu different from most of West Africa's fufu,
So I
like
don't
the
I can't
Nigerian
I
Ghanaian fufu.
yeah, I can't tell for sure, because I have not had the Nigerian or Ghanaian fufu, so I think
What? Oh
I
my
need to correct
goodness.
that. But so much of it back home is maize based. So
Oh, okay.
right,
Yeah.
like so some of it is maize based. The other one is cassava based too, and some of the other people back home just mix the two, cassava and maize, and make kind of like fufu out of it. So
Yeah,
I will
it's
say.
different. If it's maize based, I think that's different. That's different because most of ours is there's cassava, but cassava
Mm,
is not the main cassava is gari, which is
mm,
eba. But
mm.
when one would say fufu, fufu is mostly yam, plantains, and
Oh.
there's even cocoyam fufu. But all these you can get on Amazon now. There's technology, so yeah, the people selling them now. The people got sharp.
I
I
see.
mean, like yeah,
Yeah.
so if you don't want to go, if you don't have a store around you, if you look on
Mm.
Amazon, you should try it. You should try it and see.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I've had the plantains one. So some people back
They,
home
they,
do
they
the.
actually mix plantain. There's a Ghanaian. That's mostly on the Ghanaian side. Nigerians tend to do mostly. We act like we can mix stuff. So it's only the yams that we do. But if you search online for fufu, you see you probably see the plantain mixed, the plantain and yam fufu, and even the plantain and cocoa yam. The Ghanaians have that mix too. You should try it. Try it
Right.
and see.
I need to correct that for sure. I will try it and let you know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it'll work for you. So at least you can survive on that until you head back home.
Yeah, back for sure, for sure.
Let the West Africans assist you. in the
Right.
meantime. So there's no way I will have someone from Congo without
Mm.
asking about music because you guys now Nigerians are the flavor of the continent, but anyone who knows history of music
Right.
in Africa knows that without Congo there'll be no music.
Mm-hmm.
And Nigerians won't like me saying that, but it's the truth. Because even
Facts, yes.
I grew up on lots of Congolese music without even knowing it was Congolese music, and my mom,
Right.
I thank my mom for that. But there were so many, was it Papa Wemba?
Papa Wemba, yes.
There are lots of them who I can't recall, but these are the old timers. And
Right.
we had all those songs playing on the on the record, what they call them, the old record players, and
Yes.
that was the jams.
Right.
Without that, your party wasn't popping back in the.
It was not, yes.
I'm an '80s kid, so
Yeah.
but those were for the adults. And people don't understand the influence those had
Mm.
on the rest of the continent. And then when Awilo will now
Right.
rise up
Mm-hmm.
late in the 90s, um, that just led to another explosion, and some people just thought that was the beginning of Makosa. Makosa had been around forever, but
Right. Right.
but Awilo now led to the resurgence of Makosa again, and the whole continent was like, Makosa, Makosa. And everywhere in Nigeria, you saw everybody bending down, dancing. Until today, every Nigerian party, if you don't play Awilo Logumba, man,
Yeah.
your party is still not popping, and it's still that same Awilo's first album that they're playing.
Yeah.
Like that's how
Yeah.
you know it's a Nigerian party. If they don't
Yes.
play
Yes. Yes.
Awilo, it's like
When you go.
people are going to fight the DJ. Like, hello, when are you gonna play Awilo?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
2020. Like if not for the pandemic, I think Nigerians will still be having parties like, hello, when you gonna play Awilo? You're not gonna play
Yeah.
Awilo. Like my mom is 82 and she's still going to be like, they did not play Awilo in this party.
Ah, really?
Yeah, they didn't play that. When they go play, I said, let them play other songs too, though.
Right.
That kind of
Right.
artist from Congo. So that just shows you the effect he had. He
Yeah.
still has on all the scenes. Like, yeah, every Burna Boy is number one now, and everybody, but Awilo still he still dominates. We still love
Yeah.
him, and even
Yeah.
though Nigerians don't like admitting that any other person is the best,
Right.
but the influence of Congolese on music will
Yeah.
always be there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Awilo is it's actually it's an interesting thing because Awilo he's obviously known in Congo, but outside of Congo, he's one of those few artists, Congolese artists, who have this fame compared to the others.
mhm.
And so yeah, every time I do I do talk about Congolese music, and I mean um, I didn't just hear kind of like the end of your question there, but
Oh no, I haven't asked the question. I was
you were just it was a
no,
comment. Okay,
no, it's just a
so yeah,
comment I
but
was
like
giving.
Congolese music as a whole in general, we have the Awilos, we have Kofi Olomide, we have
Yeah,
the
Kofi was big
Williamson,
too.
we have the Papa Wemba, the Miliabe, the
Yeah.
Bekale from the old times, which just right like do an amazing job, are phenomenal. And then we also have these just every other Congolese, as I like to say, right? Like you meet them, you see the craft of what they're doing, and you're like, wow, like this person is good. And had it not been like if he was, and gladly I think I'm seeing some of this now, right? Like because I think the cost to break out as a musician in the past was very I mean the cost upfront was big,
Yes.
and you had to like to your point, like you will have these people who have already like 3 albums already, and then suddenly one song makes them break out, and then people are like, oh, let's go back and see what they used to be doing as well. So yeah, there are I like in the whole like there is a spectrum really for me as far as Congolese music is concerned, and there are like chill, believe it or not, chill Congolese music that are like calm and
Oh yeah. My mom had everything. Looking back now, I realized that she had everything on the record
Right.
players because nobody ever came to the house, or nobody, because I was like the youngest person in the house, and nobody ever said this is Congolese Congolese artists playing. But there'll be
Right.
times you had slower music playing, but that tune that you could
Right.
relate to, that today I know it's Congolese,
Yes.
was always there. And
Yeah.
now sometimes the memory would just pop up, and I'm like, oh wow, so that was a Congolese song with a Congolese artist playing. But
Yeah.
but there was, the melody is just on the slower side, and then there's sometimes the melody is up, is higher, it's a faster beat.
Yeah.
But there's always that tune that's like, that rhythm, there's some rhythm, I don't know
Yeah.
how to describe, but this is
Yes.
like, you can say, okay,
Uh,
it's just like some like the South African music. There's a
yes.
rhythm there that,
Mm,
once when you hear that, you're like, oh, this is from South Africa. You just know this is
exactly.
South Africa. And then now Nigeria is beginning to have that you can identify. So this is Nigerian.
Like
And then
music.
the Ghana is beginning to have its own thing. Like this is Ghana. Everybody, but Congo had theirs long, way. I think Congo was the first to have that, way like
Yeah.
from 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
You hear that, and now I can identify a whole bunch of. I don't even need to know who's singing, who the
Yeah.
artist. I don't need to know the artist's name, but like I just hear this song, I'm like, yep, This is
That
this is
that
this
is
is
Congolese.
Congolese.
You know, the beauty in this is that I think music is one of the few mediums that can get passed on so many generations over. And
Yep.
so Congo's independence was June 30th, 5 days ago.
Oh yeah.
And I on my Instagram, I just shared kind of a timeline of events from 2000 years before Christ, right? Like BC to the Independence Day. And one line there that I want to highlight that I found, right? Like, so many years, like before now, right? Like so many, thousands of years, I would say, right? Like I think it was like 425, years. That's when the first Bantus get established in the Congo Basin, right? Like what's Congo today,
Mm-hmm.
and guess where they came from, right? Like they came from the today's regions of Nigeria, right?
Wow.
And part of me, as we were discussing here, just can't help but think those people were making music, right? Like some form of music,
Mm.
and that form of music was being passed on. They were singing, right?
Yeah.
Like they were singing to each other, right? So it was being passed on. So I think it's an interesting thought now to just think of. I was watching BET recently, right? To think of all this BET International, awards nominee, where Burna, who was the winner,
Yeah.
was competing with all these other, Congolese and South African artists, right? Like, there is a beauty to me in like bringing it. This is kind of like that convergent point where it's like, hey, maybe at the core, this is the same people who diverge at some point in history and went to establish themselves in different areas. And this is kind of that feast, that party, that reunion, that gathering, where this is the best of Nigeria as developed in the past 500 or 600 years. And we come from Congo with, Inos B, and say, hey, this is what we bring from the perspective of Congo, from the past 1600 years. And South Africa, Shoma Josie comes with, hey, this is what, had evolved towards south of DRC. So I see beauty in that, and I don't like when people only limit, I think, our history to the 1900s, to
Yeah.
think that we appeared in the 1900s. We had this legacy of events and kingdoms and music and all of that, and so when I see, like, to me, music, every time I listen to musicians, artists, all over Africa, Ethiopia, like Congo, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, everywhere, right? Like it gives me that idea of a party, right? Like it's like, this is us coming back together.
True.
And being like, woo, you changed the style from how it used to be when we used to be together, right?
Yep.
Like, so and so, like, it's our opportunity to bring it all back again and be like, hey, ultimately we are this one, these people that were shaped by events and experiences from environments that we ended up occupying or moving to throughout the past. So
Yeah.
and I'm glad,
shaped
as to
by
your point,
evolution. Yeah.
right, by evolution. And I'm glad, to your point, that, like, we now have these kind of sense of pride in bringing that to the table. Everyone comes, it's like a potluck, all right? Like
Yeah,
everyone is,
potluck. That's right.
yeah, I brought this, right? Like,
Hmm.
from Nigeria with love, and I brought this from Congo with love. And so
Yeah,
I enjoy so much, getting to see prominent artists from Congo rise, because as they rise, it's like, yeah, the potluck is going to be fun. Same for Nigeria,
that's
same
true.
for Ghana, because we're all going to bring this uh, together to feast and party. We have the best
The way
culture.
I
We have the
describe it is everybody can win. Winning is not limited to one person.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly,
So
right.
let's dive back to you. And so you studied in college what software engineering,
Yeah, computer science and math. Yes.
computer science and math. So where did software engineering come in? From what you started doing as a kid, that
Mhm.
you just decided to stick with that. That was that when the map was you saw the map being drawn, and then you said, okay, this is it. You're going to stick with,
No,
or
I
was it,
wish,
were you
that
tempted
was
to
it.
do something else?
No, I wish that was it. I actually did something else. So I as soon as I graduated high school, I actually went to med school for a year before coming over to the U.S. So and the idea of med school. So I of course I was good. I was comfortable with computers, not coding. So I was not programming. I was not doing software engineering, but I
Okay.
was just comfortable using computers. But uh, I didn't see a path for a career in Congo, or at least for like education in Congo in software engineering, because obviously, right, like maybe some of the people that were my customers, I guess per se, for writing or typing their work were actually some of the students who were doing um, software engineering home, right? So I saw them. I didn't have any appeal to it. I was like, I don't think this is the next level, even if I wanted to go into software engineering when I was in
Mm-hmm.
Congo. And so, just as an irregular African kid, then I'm like, the, the medical schools here are okay enough that I can get the right education. But the biggest part is you get that respect of like, he's a doctor, and your
Yeah.
mom will never stop talking about you everywhere they go, right? Like in church and in right. So
Trust me, I know.
I kind of fell in that. I fell in that trap. I was like, sure. Told my parents that, yeah, I decided. Obviously, they're happy. They're like, sure, my son's gonna be a doctor. Finally, I won't wait on lines to get seen at the hospital and stuff like that. But so I go to Bukavu for a year. But just as random as just events happen in life, right? Like there are researchers who come to Goma, my hometown, and they were doing just research. They came from Georgia, from Atlanta. Some of them were Georgia Tech, the university professors, and some of them were Morehouse College professors. And so they're doing research about like environmental stuff or agricultural stuff. But just as a coincidence, they actually come and do visit my school, my high school where I went. And at that time, I'm not at the high school because I'm in another city studying med school. But my siblings were still, my younger sisters were still studying there. And so that's how I come to know that, oh, there are some American people who stopped by, and they left some information about the school they are from. And so I get to actually come to Goma a few days later, and I see the paper that they wrote. And the paper was actually talking about Morehouse College, right?
Mm.
Like, and I see on the paper there is a picture. Barack Obama spoke at Morehouse in 2013 at the commencement. So there is a picture of Barack Obama wearing the Morehouse memorabilia and all that, and then there is also MLK, kind of a picture of MLK speaking. I did know both of them, both those two personalities. So I was like, wow, interesting. So this school has something to do with these two people. And so my idea, that's kind of where the rebirth of the idea of me kind of like re-exploring tech came from.
Yeah.
I was like, if I didn't study tech related fields in Congo because I just didn't see a very strong enough or solid basis that I can learn from here in Congo. Me going to Atlanta and being admitted to Morehouse will probably be that leap, and that will help me learn everything that I need to learn tech wise. And thankfully that worked out. It was a very wild kind of turnaround because after I got to Goma, I saw that paper. It only took me like about I think 4 to 6 months, and I was already in the US because I just did all the applications, did all the TOEFL, like without knowing even English, right? Like
Wow.
it's crazy studying, in 2 weeks, just doing like 80 hours a week or 70 hours a week, studying to ensure that you can maintain both kind of status in med school and also try to see through some of these applications that you're doing to the
Oh, so
US.
you okay? So yeah, I understand now.
Yeah, I
You are
kept doing
maintaining
both.
both med school and okay. Yeah.
Yeah, in our culture, right? Like back home, people will tell you to be cautious. They're like, oh, those are scams.
Yeah.
Those professors are real. Don't even need, right? So I had to make sure that I'm not losing my year in med school as I'm doing this work. So as I came to Morehouse, yeah, I think it was decided. I was still tempted to do pre-med when I was at Morehouse, but I think the passion grew stronger for like math and computer science.
Okay.
And that's how I became a software engineer finally.
All right.
Yeah.
That makes sense now. So now you arrive in the United States at Morehouse. What was your first culture shock?
So if you've traveled to Atlanta, you will know that the airport is about 25 minutes from the city. So I did think I was scammed, being coming out of the airport and be like, what are these trees about? Like I just came from places that has trees, and and green and right. Like so, I think there is something about the portrayal of America in movies as this, very Manhattan-like
Yeah.
place, right? Like everything is paved, all the buildings are like 80 stories and up. And everything is cold, everything is like is snowy or right, like this kind of idea like of the West that is pictured in movie. So I get to Atlanta, it was in August, right? So it was summer, like, and it was super hot.
Oh, you came, yep. Hot season.
Right. So as I'm like sweating so hard, and then I'm only seeing trees around me, right? Like what? Like have we arrived yet, or we are like kind of somewhere in the middle in Cape Verde, somewhere to the US. So, so yeah, that was the one of the few ones, and then I mean the other one was just language, really, like realizing that even if I did my best to learn some English to do my TOEFL or my ACTs, in America there is more than one English. I say this to people, right? As soon as I got to Georgia, I was like, this is nothing close to anything I heard on YouTube at all, right? So so that was quite something, right? Because I could hear some of the videos on YouTube. I'm like, I can listen, and I can speak, can respond a little bit slower. But like, yeah, as I got to Atlanta, every conversation I was like, I'm lost. Can you like slower, please? So so those two will be my first kind of cultural shocks as soon as I stepped my foot out of the plane.
So you still, as part of your time at Morehouse, you
Right.
still joined the Phi Beta Kappa,
Beta
right?
Kappa. Yeah.
And so you let yourself experience college the full way. You went through everything.
Yeah. So yeah,
You didn't
I must
allow
say,
your lack of English stop you.
I must say,
How will you just describe your college experience?
Right. Yeah. It was fascinating. I mean, everyone who is considering and probably is torn between, hey, should I go to an HBCU or not? Like the answer should be obvious. You have to go to an HBCU, like historically, like college and university, like Morehouse, because this the experience is amazing from all ends. Right.
Mm.
I will say first of all, it was perfect that I had to go to a historically black college and university, me coming from a majority black country or like a
Yeah.
99.9% country. So the transition didn't, add the stigma of, me looking like I look to my struggles of trying to adapt to a new place, right? Like,
Mm.
so me seeing people who look like me around me was not an issue, right? Like, so I didn't have to worry about, hey, I'm black. And suddenly people are like, acting weird around me because everybody around me, my classmates, were black the way I was. So it was a lighter lift on my end to
Yeah.
just transition from Congo to an HBCU. So that was great. The other thing that I found fascinating, just being a Morehouse, is just the wealth of history that's in those places, in HBCUs and at Morehouse specifically, and specifically around these historical figures that history has decided to just like tone down and not
Mm.
highlight, but that speaks so deeply and directly to the black experience, that you get to the space and suddenly the question of role model doesn't stops being an issue, because you find amazing black computer scientists, or you find amazing black preachers, philosophers, like physicists, like anything that really you are pursuing as an objective in life. Like Morehouse helps kind of highlight those, and not just historical, even living ones, right? Like at Morehouse, we have this Thursday event called Crown Forum, and basically this Crown Forum is this, the whole school comes together to hear from the college and a specific speaker about a specific topic or issue, right? Like, so then you get to hear, like, Cornel West came twice at the school when I was at Morehouse, right? Like just all these just amazing black thinkers who we relate to and like help us shape our view, intellectual view as just black men in the world. Period. Right? Like we're accessible, and we're not presented as heroes per se that can't be reached, right? Like because I think there is an issue where people present like MLK was great, but we are not expecting you to be MLK. You can fight, right? Like you said, they elevate him so high that
Mm.
they don't make him relatable to you. So that
Okay.
if he's not relatable to you, then you won't have the courage to come and fight.
That's right.
The fight that MLK had. So Morehouse was that place where you get to see these black thinkers for who they are, and then it helps kind of bridge that, demystify that idea that they are exceptional. That's why they did what they did.
Mm.
But you can be a part of what they did as well. You can if you work hard, if you just kind of follow much of what they did as a learning, you can also have an impact as great as theirs. So I think that was big as well. And obviously like last comment, which is what usually people say of HBCUs first, is that it's just a fun environment, right? Like and like it being in Atlanta, it adds a little bit more to it in that, right? Like every day is a party, right? Like
Yeah.
Hump Wednesday, what was happening at the school every Wednesday. There is like, so it's just, and the amount of just kind of events that are put together by like fraternities and sororities from Spelman College, to just kind of like come and you as you learn, you enjoy yourself as well, and kind of unlearn some of the the things or the stigma that society puts in you in not being proud of your blackness,
Yeah.
and enjoying the just black spaces. So Morales was quite an amazing experience, right? Like I can't trade it for anything. And most of all, I will say it helped me also kind of draw closer to the African American experience, which I didn't have any exposure to, and get to just be there and learn from my brothers and sisters who have had it on the American side, and their experience, and then I get to also bring my African side and my African experience, and hopefully that at the end we get to understand that the I think there is no question around the fun. We are fun people, whether you are in America, African American, or in Africa.
Yep.
But then on the negative experience, we get to understand that the underlying system that's there to oppress is targeting all of us.
That's
whether
right.
whether you are African, whether you are African American,
Mm-hmm.
and that there is like us not moving forward together is not an option, it's an obligation.
That's
That
true.
we stick together and then understand that we have to strategize or find ways to just like in lockstep fight or dismantle the system. And like me, I didn't know, for example, that Malcolm X was very critical of US involvement in Congo issues in the 60s. And he was very critical that the CIA is going after Lumumba, and that's not good, for example, right? So that type of solidarity, like that stems from the urgency of understanding that the realities that we are facing are collective.
Yeah.
They're not targeting an African, they're not targeting an African American. Is something that we need to kind of build and instill in us, right? Like whenever there are killings of like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and just like the list goes on, right? Ahmaud Arbery, right? Like so, and then when you juxtapose that with the killing of thousands and hundreds and probably millions of Congolese in Eastern Congo, just because some company wanted to get some minerals to build batteries, right? Like the system is building upon one underlying kind of truth to them, which is these people don't matter, right? And that's why this whole conversation around Black Lives Matter is very important, right? So like if the idea is that we do not matter, like as a collective, how do we actually go about hitting on all the tables that we can find to tell people that it's not an American issue. And I love that the Black Lives Matter movement has at least recently, like use of people like Leopold II, the king of Belgium, who killed 10 million Congolese, right, are being brought down in Belgium, right? Like that's what at the core it should be about, right? Like we should understand that, right? Like it's not about just the police, right? Like
no, the police is just one part of it,
right?
It's
how about
just
health? How about education? How about right, like social justice? In how about like just women's rights, right? Like in Congo, in America, and everywhere.
Women's
right?
rights, our LGBT brethren,
right? Like.
And the golden topic
the list
that
goes on,
they are afraid of is still reparations at the end of the day, because for what King Leopold did alone, it killed more people than Hitler did, and people try to avoid that topic
and built Belgium in the process.
Yeah,
right.
There's hardly any Western country that didn't make money off our ancestors' backs and tears, and and that's why the whole misinformation war that has been in place. I used to be one of those, that will look down on my African American brethren and be like, yeah, because I was born in Africa, I'm better than you, and and that's why if I had the opportunity to go back and do it all over again, I would have attended the HBCU, That's one thing I have as close to a regret that I have, because I should have done that, but I wasn't aware of the significance of attending HBCU. But yeah, so it took a lot of learning and interactions for me to start seeing that that wiring process, the misinformation, the propaganda had started a long time ago. Because you start seeing, and then you start learning and talking to other people, and then you're like, wait, they intentionally created bubbles for us, made us stay in a bubble. And then you start saying, oh, we start having a different picture about African Americans. And then when we come here, we're like, we don't need to talk to you. We don't, you're not stepping up to the plate. But if they had not fought for everything that they fought for, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have any rights. I wouldn't be able to say anything today.
Yeah.
And our struggle back home is still the same struggle.
Yeah.
And when there are people back home who reach out to me and say, why are these black people complaining about, why they fighting, why they against Trump, why they not supporting Trump? And then I start asking them about, okay, what's going on in Nigeria? Why do you like the police? Do you like the way police? Do you remember when the police almost killed me a few years ago, before I left Nigeria? Do you remember when the army almost did this to me? And then they're like, oh, well, that was not good. That was bad. I didn't like that. I say, okay, but so would you like for them to be able to be held accountable? They say, yes. I say, okay, so should we apply the same thing over here? Like, oh, I say, you see? You remember when you were complaining on Twitter about officers misbehaving? Nobody can hold them accountable. Shouldn't other countries have the same thing in place? Oh, yes. I said, okay, so why do you want other people denying the same right? But I say, well, there's no but, because you don't you know what it feels like. You've seen it. You understand. So you know who the enemy is. So why are you now saying it's called this construct, you know what the matter is about. That's why you're seeing this problem. You're seeing other people taking the Black Lives Matter and localizing it in their territory and attacking who the enemy is right there. And I've had people from I've had a friend in Finland reach out to me and say he wasn't sure if there was a problem. I said, dude, talk to the immigrants in your country and refugees in your country. They'll tell you. If you're not sure if there's something wrong, there are people who can tell you. I don't have the details, but talk to the people there, and they will point it out for you. And he did that, and he said, okay, I have a different reality now. I said, okay, good. Now you know what to do. Go take it up. You don't need to be in America. So you're not in America, so you're not in our space, but you know the right thing to do. So so he's been taking it up over there. But that's the beauty of overcoming the misinformation war. And the interesting another thing about HBCUs that I found out not after I started overcoming the misinformation was even during World War II, when they started allowing Jewish refugees come to America. Most schools wouldn't allow Jewish students coming, especially like the Ivy Leagues, and it was HBCUs that allowed Jewish students and professors teach there. And I was like, wow, what happened? It's just like somebody put a pause on that. Don't make that public anymore. Don't make this. And, I'm like, what just happened to all that? These are stuff that should be everyday information. Everybody, it should be in all textbooks. It should be everywhere. Why did I just stumble on that by mistake? And then find this out, and I'm like, wow, this just changed my, and wow. Also, all these stuffs are hidden. And even back in Nigeria, HBCUs weren't like everybody wants to go to Harvard. There's nothing wrong if you want to go to an Ivy League school, but why can't we see value in going to a HBCU? Because we don't hear that. We hear all the big Nigerian billionaires come over here and donate money to other schools, but we don't hear them saying, I want to go donate money to a HBCU. And they don't understand the significance of that. So I just have to mention that too, and it's an ongoing battle, but I'm pretty sure we'll overcome. It never ends. Yeah. So without spending much time on that, we have to jump quickly into Malaika, which is something I'm proud of you for doing. So how did you get involved with Malaika?
Yeah, so Malaika is actually Swahili word for angel. And Malaika is a non-profit organization founded by Noela Groceries, who is a Congolese model and philanthropist. And so the school is located in southeast Congo. And so the school the foundation has different components to Malaika, right? Like there is a school portion and there is the community center. The school helps educate young girls, over 340 young girls for free, like in primary school, across primary school and high school. And it's just not education; it's a holistic approach to education, right? Like how do we education the person as a whole person, right? Like so many people, and it's the school is located in a village in Kalibuka. And then the question, as you bring these girls to school, there are lots of other things that they are going through. They probably didn't eat. They probably had to walk hours to go get water. They probably had to cook for the whole family, or they probably might be going through some abuse in their whole family, right? Like all of these kind of uh, realities that surround a human, a person, right?
Yeah.
Noela was keen on trying to create a space where the people, the girls, and the community surrounding them can be educated, and not just be educated in, hey, let's lock you all in these four walls and tell you what Henry Morton Stanley did when he discovered, when they say discovered in there, right, like some parts of Congo, right? Like, so that wasn't the intent. The intent is,
Yeah.
how do we actually bring you and then educate you holistically, right? Like
Mm.
the girls get food at the school. There is a clinic at the school to treat the girls if they are sick or something is happening to them, and then they get to learn, obviously, with a very practical component where you have to have people like me, right, like who can go to the school and teach them, and someone who is Congolese, relatable, right, like, and
Yeah.
give them a practical aspect to what their teachers are giving them theoretically. And then the community center is there to actually help establish the support system for the girls, because the community center targets everybody else,
Mm.
the families of the girls, the villages themselves, all right, like just the youth in general,
Yeah.
and it's just girls, right? Like, so how do you make sure that you are teaching, for example, parents all these life skills so that they can go out and be autonomous enough to make enough money, so that the kid has to have like uniforms, or actually uniforms are provided by the school as well, but like can have all these other important things that can help her go to school, right? How do you also educate the boys also, right? Like to like at the community center to show them how critical it is that if the girl gets educated as much as they are also being educated, because there's still that stigma in so many families, so many African
Yeah.
families, to, hey,
Mm-hmm.
I have 5 kids, two boys, like I don't have so much money, you boys go, these
Yeah. The
girls are going to
boys
stay
get
here.
yeah.
So
Priority
right,
is
like
always on the boy.
there isn't any kind of like superiority here as far as who needs to be educated and not, and like we are all winning ultimately
Yeah.
when the girls are being educated. So the boys play soccer there, they get to also learn some just skills, as much as, I mean, the parents of the kids learn like English, languages, English, Swahili, French there. So yeah, I
Oh,
mean, you can
nice.
think how
Nice.
important it is for a parent to even help kids to do their homework, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
community center helps towards that area. So yeah, like in a nutshell, that's it, right? Like a holistic approach to education that doesn't only look at the student, but looks everything that surrounds the student, right? Like Malaika has built, I think, 20 wells now at this point in the village,
Oh,
and the question
nice.
around building the wells is, most of these girls will actually have to go walk an hour to fetch water
Yeah.
before they come to school. So how do you like lighten the load there so that the girls can only walk 10 minutes, get the water, come to school, and then only like have their undivided attention
Mm-hmm.
on the materials that have to be taught, right?
Yeah.
So like just how did I meet Malaika? I just read about it a while back, like I think probably 5 or 6 years ago, and I just became instantly a fan of that idea, right? Like one of the things I focus on, like consider, I guess my passion, quote unquote, are like education, health, and social justice, kind of like a mix of those three, right? So that on the education piece. I was fascinated with that idea that you get to educate someone, not just because the country set up an education kind of like like toolkit, but because you are keen on making sure that you are building a leader who's going to come and impact the world and Congo and Africa in general, right? Like in a specific way. So I started following Malaika from then on. Just followed the leaders like Noella on social media, and will write to her if I just give feedback if I find something is interesting or fascinating. So until I actually did meet her, so like the plan for me to actually actively be involved in Malaika kind of
Yeah.
came together when I met her at the conference me and I were together at in New York, right?
Oh, that was the first time. Oh, that
Yeah,
you met
like
her.
you and I. Yeah. So like we will talk before, but we had not never met in person. So we met there, and we kind of like had this time to ideate around how to just get involved, and it started just by Noella inviting me to the school. Really, she didn't ask me to get involved or anything. She
Yeah.
just said, "Hey, come visit the school." And I was like, of course, right? Like I really want to. So I went to Congo in December and went to Malaika. And the team did a phenomenal job setting up kind of an intensive week-long, basically just kind of coding class that I taught there. And yeah, that was gonna be like a good way for me to measure whether it's something useful or needed or impactful to teach the girls coding. And the response was amazing. The girls were just eager to learn. So then we worked with the school to just establish something permanent. How do we, even if I'm here, right? Like how do we keep teaching the girls remotely via Skype some of these
Okay.
courses?
Let me pause you there.
Yeah.
Uh, how did you explain coding to the girls? Was that their first time of diving into coding?
No, so their teachers, I had been talking to their teachers before that, so they had some concept,
Okay.
but it was not like, so the goal at least that I have as being part of the advisory board for Malaika is how do we kind of push the needle, like advise the students, I mean the teachers to push the needle towards like not just saying, hey, we're gonna expose you to coding, but like making the students from Malaika some of the best in class as they graduate,
All right.
like in Congo, right? Like, so when I got there, explaining coding, to me, I think is easier because I wrestle with the idea that I think, right, like, people in the tech world had created jargon or some words, complicated words to exclude people very intentionally, to exclude people. Like at the core of it, to me, it's just a language, right? Like, and that's how I explained it to them. I'm like, hey, the same way, if you have to go to Japan, and you want to be effective there, you will say, hey, maybe I should learn Japanese. And then when I get there, I don't have to struggle maybe to translate whenever someone talks to me. And so to me, I told them that, hey, coding is, or like a programming language, really, it's really a language where instead of you talking now to a Japanese, when you're in Japan, you are talking to these population of people called computers, right? Like, so and those computers have a specific language they understand. So if you treat it as a person that can understand something, and you treat yourself as someone who has learned the language that they can understand, then that's coding, right? And so as I teach them, I just had to find these analogies that brought us back to a conversational thing with the
Okay.
computer. Like the reason why I click on an email and you hit send, that's literally what I'm telling the computer. Hey, take these words, I do want to send them to this person, and here all the information about this person, send it. and then like you will see it to me. And I think the analogy I probably give to them was, hey, the same way your parents, right, like want to send the message to your aunt who is somewhere like 30 minutes from your house.
Yeah.
That operation is the exact same thing. They use a language to talk to you. They're like, hey, X, come take this, radio or whatever, like this box, go with it. So for example, one example, I told them, I'm like, hey, what if your parents don't tell you where to go with it? Are you gonna go? They're like, no, of course I'll ask them where I'm gonna bring it. I'm like, exactly. That's exactly how the computer is too. You will have to put an email, because that's you telling the computer, hey, bring it to that person. Right. And so and sometimes, if you're on Gmail, I even told them that I'm like, if the content, there is nothing in the body of the content, what will Google or Gmail tell you? Or if you say, hey, I attached a file, and then you didn't attach it in the email, right? Like the email will complain and be like, you said you attached something, but like I don't see it.
Yeah.
And to you as a human, your parents can come and say, hey, go take a box on top of the shelf and bring it to your aunt. If the box is not there, you're gonna be like, no, I don't see any box. Dad, where did you like put that box that you say that? So it's the exact same. It's kind of one-to-one mapping. I'm talking to you as a computer, and I'm telling the computer, hey, go do this. If he doesn't find it, or if he doesn't understand my language, for example, if your parents speak to you in Japanese and you don't speak it, then you'll be like,
then you'll be confused. Yeah.
Right. And that's how the computer is too. You come in and, instead of putting your username, you put the password in the place of the username. The computer is like,
the computer is going to reject it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think ultimately, right, like we need to do a good job as well as like teachers to just kind of not buy into this idea that I blame a little bit the Silicon Valley word that just created the jargon around tech to portray it as this complicated world.
But that's why we have people like you bringing the change. And because the way you just explain it right now, I'm like, wow, you know what, coding sounds a lot easier.
Right.
Because before I used to look at it like something a lot now I feel like one of the 5-year-olds, like, oh yeah. I'm excited. But we could have spent more time on it, but I'm literally out of time. So, let me just dive into quafricatravel.com. I said it right. Yeah. And so that you co-founded a tourism company. So, in a few minutes, do you mind just touching on that?
Yeah. So. Back to the idea I mentioned around me being, passionate about, health and education and the social justice component, right? Like obviously there isn't tourism in those three, right? But like something that I think will, multiply all of my passions, by zero, is if I can't push where I'm coming from and why, everything that I'm trying to do is important. And back to the conversation we had earlier around education, or like people studying, mountains from other regions instead of studying the one from Africa, is that the vehicle that helps us actually highlight the issues and give weight to the issues is through like media. And trips and travels and like the perceptions of people of these, things that we portray, and especially in this case, places that we portray. So then my question was, if I'm so passionate about anything Congo, like at least my passion around creating a tourism company, if I was so passionate about anything Congo and I want to see, for example, a thriving Congo in education or in health, and where like the rights of women and children and everyone are actually respected, I have to level zero. The first step I have to do is create some form of appeal of from you to Congo or Africa in general. Like you have to know that it's more than the wars. You have to know that it's more than the chaos. You have to know that there are like valuable human beings there, like who have dignity and should be treated as such, who also live there. So like to me, then because I see the reason why, like in the US, I brought my parents. My parents came to visit me a year and a half ago, and I brought them to Hollywood at the Walk of Fame, and there was this image that I'll never forget. Is like I'm seeing my mom look at the stars under, and I'm like, Mom, that's someone you know. That's Celine Dion, or that's, and she's like, but it's still the pavement. Well, like it's dirty, people threw some stuff on it, right? And so to me, I'm like, and that made me think, I'm like, wow, the Americans have sold this idea to me that this is an attraction, that this is valuable, regardless of how dirty it is as a walkway. It's thousands, millions of people flood to that place per year, and they pay money, they buy stuff in those restaurants. Why? Because they've told them, the media has created this sense of Hollywood, like this sense of like, because to me, my mom told me, like, I was expecting this, gigantic, very amazing, like, just, jaw-dropping experience when you told me you're bringing me to Hollywood.
Gotta love our mothers.
Right? So all I saw was dirty pavements and with like names on it. I can do this anywhere, even in Goma. I can write a name of somebody on the right. So I mean, my point being really that like we must learn like to also market and elevate ourselves and our experiences in a way that puts us in front for people to like. Whenever now I talk about education in Congo, right? Like people can use these positive ideas they have about Congo as kind of a stepping stone, a first step into understanding why it's important that we support the girls in Congo, into understanding why it's important that we support, like we protect the gorillas in Congo, right? Like in the Virunga National Park, right? So and then that's the first reason why I actually went into creating Africa Travel. And the second, I think probably even the most important one is that one. It speaks to what you mentioned about ourselves. Right, like we can create the worth around our country to make sure that people can respect it and lean in. But it's not important if we don't understand our worth on ourselves, right? Like so, and a Congolese and African, ultimately through tourism, I want them to see the beauty of what our country has to offer and own it and be the ambassadors of it, right? Like, so that the first time someone asks in a meeting, for example, hey, you guys are in quarantine, what's the first destination that you will want to go to when this all things is over? I want to hear, a Nigerian or a Congolese or like to name a specific amazing place, because there are many of them in Africa, in their own country, and say, hey, I want to go see climb the Congo volcano again. And the more we do it, like just imagine how many of us are around here, like Africans and right, like, but like unfortunately, destinations for vacations, from even us, right? Like our people, the portrayal would just be like, oh, I can't bring you to Nigeria, you won't survive there, or I can't bring you to Goma, it's great. So we buy into the stereotypes that the media, Western media mostly, like has put on us, and we're actually being the agents to actually pull ourselves down, right? And that like is something that I wrestle with, and I do hope that like the work in tourism can help kind of counter provide a counter narrative to that, saying that, hey, no, Congo is beautiful, Africa is beautiful, we should own it, we should visit it, we should like speak so highly of it, because if we don't, nobody else will, right? Like I see so many Africans clapping when a star, right, like, or Beyonce or whoever a star speaks about Africa, but when when it's our turn, when we're given the stage to talk about our continent, then we keep quiet. I'm like, so like Africa suddenly becomes worthwhile because a star in America said it is, or no, it still was. It used to be, and it
always be. Yeah.
And so you have to. It's our responsibility to like put it out there to make sure that, hey, this is great, right? Like, and technologically, actually, to geek out a little bit here too, is that the information we have when you go on Google or Bing and search, for example, hey, Congo or Goma, like the algorithm works based on the content that people put out there. So imagine if the content that's put about Goma only comes from all these media talking about killings in Goma, or talking about how poverty has affected Africa and African countries. The first ever results that are going to show up are going to be those results of bad press against um, Africa, right? Like, and those media don't necessarily have obligation to balance it out. They won't necessarily go and talk about Malaika and how the Malaika girls are actually building shields that are protecting, frontline workers in Congo to fight COVID-19. You will never see that on Forbes. You will never see that on CNN. You will never see that. Well, but like the moment you hear somebody showed up in Kalibuka, a village that has girls, and killed 2 teachers, it will be all over France 24. It will be all over the news. So like,
I never thought of it from that angle, but yeah,
right.
I'm guilty of that too.
So then the issue to me becomes, right, like, we are feeding literally Google and these platforms that feed us back the information, the very same weapon to eliminate us. Because when someone else is gonna go search, if it's someone who has to travel, maybe a Congolese American or a Nigerian American who grew up in the US and wants to go back and experience Nigeria or Congo for what it is, right? All they will see is killings every day, right? And then the tendency to them is like, I want to dissociate from this. Like, this is not me. This shouldn't be my experience. And you won't blame them. They don't know. Nobody's there to tell them that, hey, actually, no, this thing is 2% of what actually you will see if you step your foot on the continent where you have to go. And I think that's a responsibility that we have, and kind of my passion around Africa travel. How do you make sure that our people of our descent, can actually see and know our continent for what it is, and be those ambassadors to the rest of the world, to be like, hey, if there is any white or Asian friend that you had to bring back to your country, like, I mean, to travel with anywhere, it should be your country. Don't say, hey, let's plan a trip to Greece. Like why, right? Like, yep. Like, let's start first. It's good, we can always go back to Greece, but like, I think the first destination should be Goma, should be Lagos, should be the cities that you are coming from and are proud to represent, right? So
I'll wrap up on this. I always say this, like, when people ask me, I say, like, I can't tell anybody, in all honesty, to go to northeast Nigeria, because there's no safety there. But
yeah,
Nigeria is a big country, and if anyone has gone to Calabar during the Christmas period, they shut down the state for like a whole month, and it's just it's a carnival. And everybody always thinks Lagos. Lagos is not Lagos. There's traffic. You stay in traffic for like 2 hours, 3 hours. Yeah. Lagos is the New York, but the traffic is crazy. It's ridiculous. And I can shade on Lagos anytime, any day. I don't care. But I'm not even from the Lagos area. But there are other places where you can go to and have mad fun, and you'll be like, man, this is crazy. And there are lots of places. Some don't market themselves properly, but I give people options. If you want to go visit.
Yeah.
But Calabar was the first capital of Nigeria, and that place, they have the festival, like the number one festival in Nigeria, is still Calabar. But one thing I normally tell people is, like, just because I was born in Nigeria and I grew up there, does not mean I'm obligated to tell you that you have to go to Nigeria.
Right.
That's why I always like meeting and talking to people like yourself and knowing about what's going on, knowing about your company, because I can say, go to Congo. There's somebody I can introduce you to who has something going on there. He has something great. And I think Congo might be a good place to start with, because Africa has about 55, 56 countries. And there are so many spots. If you are so afraid about, okay, they might kill me, okay, there are so many places that are peaceful. There's not one single person being killed. Go there.
Yeah.
Go start from there. And then when you've had one experience, then you can go to Zanzibar. You can go that's Africa too. Yes, it's Africa. Oh, I did not know. Oh, yeah, now you know. And they now start saying, okay, wow. And like, yes, there's so many experiences you can have. And then they're like, oh. I was like, yes. Right. And that's what I tell people, like, what are you looking for exactly? Are you looking for a war zone, or are you looking for an excuse not to go? because
Yeah.
there are so many countries, and because if I'm playing to the nationalistic um, vibe, then I must demand you go to Nigeria. And if I'm playing to
Yeah.
my ethnicity, then I must demand you go to my region in Nigeria. But if I don't want to stick to that, I can tell you to go to other parts of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Because Nigerians, we are very ethnic. We play by our ethnicity. Because
Right.
there's that fight going on, which we don't like talking about. But
Yeah.
other places, I'm not afraid to tell you. Go to Benin Republic, go to
Right.
Togo. There are great tourist spots there. Go to
Yeah.
Ghana, go to
Yeah.
Cote d'Ivoire, and people
Yeah.
are like, but what about Nigeria? So Nigeria does not really have a lot of things in order, and
Yeah.
there are places that you might get a better experience right now. Go start
Yeah.
there. When you've had that experience there, then come to Nigeria, get
Right.
that warm up experience, and then come, and then like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, and then but so I can tell them go to Congo, go, and they're like, but Africa has options. There's so
Yeah.
many, and people always, because they always like, oh, but I only know Nigerians. That does not mean you can't go to Benin. Benin Republic is right next across the border.
Right.
When have they had a fight? They've not had any fight there. There's no terrorist group there. There's nothing. It's
Right.
just nice. You by the ocean, nice, beautiful place, and
Yeah.
hey, they have great voodoo festivals there.
Right.
So if
Right.
you really want to connect to the culture, go there and experience it and be like, wow, I never knew about, and then you see something you've never seen before in your life, and then yeah,
Right.
you're gonna really connect. And Togo has, I think, some festivals too, like that, some voodoo
Yeah.
festivals. So there's so many things people can connect with, but we just. But you're right about that, about the algorithms, and if we keep talking about just the bad news, I'm also guilty about that too, which I'd never really thought about that from that point of view. But yeah, but for me, I'm always down with like telling people,
Yeah.
Africa has over 50 countries. Do not
Yeah.
limit yourself in
And
saying,
ultimately, right? Like I think the idea of limiting ourselves by borders feed into the same idea that I mentioned about people who tend to limit African history to the 1900s.
yeah,
But like the
yes,
Berlin Conference is the one that just literally put those lines
mm-hmm,
between the countries, right? Like and the idea of like being super nationalistic about it is exactly what the oppressor, right? Like quote unquote, right? Like wants us to do, to make sure that like we just stay busy between the borderline saying no, not there, why would you, right? Like, but ultimately, right, like to your point, right, like nobody's trying to put you in a trap that will get you killed or feel bad or
yeah.
insecure, right? Like the idea is you come and enjoy these rich culture from really anywhere from the continent, to your
I
point,
mean,
right? Like, and it's very organic, right? Like
all I
people,
told someone who asked me once, I said, do you know how many movies from Hollywood have been shot in Africa? He's like, but it's not Africa. I said, so what did you say at the end? Africa, right? Okay, yeah.
yeah,
So they felt comfortable coming to shoot movies in Africa. And then
right,
after that, they said, oh, it's not safe. Well, but they
right,
shot the movie there, though, but it's not
yeah,
safe. And
yeah,
so why would they come shoot a movie in Africa? They've shot it. It was the city I was born in Nigeria. I even realized that Pierce Brosnan. They shot a movie with Pierce Brosnan there, and it would take me being a teenager to find out that
yeah,
they shot a movie. And I was like, there's so many things that they've done. These guys have been, but it's like
yeah,
when they were shooting the movie, it was safe. Well, the narrative was one way, and then the narrative changed later. And I'm like, but if people realize all these things, and like, yeah. So anyway, I got to ask you a final question.
right.
What would you like to leave the audience with? Could be a word of advice from a book you've read. Could be a quote that you live by, or based on a mantra that you live by, or from a song, from your favorite song, a line from your favorite song, or just something that you would like to leave the audience with.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for having me, first of all, and I will say that yeah. So one thing that I and I mentioned some of it earlier as well, is that ultimately, right, like anybody who is listening should understand that, like, we need, as a collective, as humans in general, right? Like, I'm not talking necessarily about Africans or African American in this case, right? Like, we need to just get back to basics and understand and ask ourselves, right, like, what makes us human, And in light of like the response we had to that question, we need to ask now, what are actually we doing on a day-to-day that subscribes to our definition of humanity? And by that I mean, right, like if someone can be so offended, for example, by just the idea that someone said, Black Lives Matter, right? Like, my question is like, is that right? Like the underlying, like, because to me, when I ask about the question about humanity, like I just go back to the primitive needs of us, right? Like I want to eat, I want to be healthy, I want my family to be healthy, I want to have fun, right? Like I want to just kind of thrive in this kind of journey I'm with on Earth, without being bothered, right? And that, at the core, that's it, right? Like all these other labels we've had around, Republican, Democrats, West, left, like left wing, right wing, all of these things have just been added, right? Like, and I mean, we get to deal with them. I'm not suppressing them because they've been created, right? Like you oppress me, now I have to deal with the fact that I'm Black because you are using my Blackness as a way of oppression. But like as we actually deal with these issues, right? Like I think one thing that I use to check myself, ultimately, is to try to just just go back to the idea of humanity. What makes me human? And I'm not gonna erase my realities, even if I'm human, but like try to like make sure that that's kind of top of mind and number one in my thought process and my acting, right? Like, am I treating this other person in a way that dignifies them as a human, and without like having too much being caught up in like my allegiance to a tribe, to an ethnic group, or to a country, or to a party, or to something else. Like our allegiance will ultimately be about humanity, and then everything else after. So I believe that from the bottom of my heart. I try to preach that, and I'm not erasing the fact that as Africans and African American, just Black people in general, also the fight has to keep going to ensure that there's equality and people are treated fairly and equally. But as we do that, right, like let's not forget our humanity, even amongst ourselves, right? Like there are issues even within ethnic groups, to your point, right? Like even within countries, even within, and most of them just kind of like happen when people clash with the idea that the other person is a less than. And we shouldn't subscribe to that. We should subscribe to an equal world where every human is treated fairly and with dignity. So thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you. So, final thing, do you have anything you'd like to plug in?
I will obviously, Malaika. Everyone should go on malaika.org and see some of the great work that's being done over there. And then obviously kwafrikatravel.com. Come visit. It's not just Congo, right? Like we the goal is everyone who wants to go to the continent of Africa, and that it's there in the name Africa, right? And the Kwa, like in Swahili, is like like she. It's like at Africa's people place, right? Like it's at. It means at Josuel's or at Frank's, at someone's person, right? Like so, Africa. So we want you to travel at our place in our home, right? Like so, kwafrikatravel.com is a great place to start as well. And I will just I will also just say that people should support like efforts that are helping to fight kind of the pandemic. We don't have to kind of like go like just diminish the environment in which we're in and holding this interview, right? Like I know so many Africans who live in America right now might be super close to the fight of the pandemic in the US, but there are lots of needs and things that are being done in Africa in general that need some attention from people all over the world. And some governments are more responsible than others, but like if anybody can do anything anywhere in their respective countries or not to help save a life or protect some lives, please do that. I don't have a specific organization to plug in, but you all can find them if you look for them. So thank you very much.
So thank you for bringing that up. It's something that I always keep forgetting to do. I'll probably look for one or two organizations that working in helping people in COVID-19. And I also still say, yeah, if you can't find any organization, the WHO and I'm trying to remember the other group in Africa that WHO has been doing a lot of work in Africa. So yeah, go support those guys. They could use all your support anyway. So once again, thank you, Josuel, for joining us today. I really enjoyed this episode. Appreciate you, and thank you for making me remember the memories. I miss it though. I haven't done it in a while. Going to sit down by the water and just watching the waves on the rocks. So yes, that's you discover your humanity when you do that. So,
no, thank you very much. It was my pleasure. You helped me kind of walk that journey also. So thank you.
All right. So thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate you. Thank you for the pleasure of your company. Join us up for the next episode, and feel free to follow us on social media and share this episode with your friends. And yeah, looking forward to catching you. Thanks for listening to White Label American. If you enjoyed the show, we'll appreciate if you rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. If you have any questions, comments, or have someone who will be a good guest on the show, or you want to be on the show, send us a message at whitelabelamerican@gmail.com. And make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at White Label American. Thank you for your support.